Får starta inspelningen där. Hello and most welcome to 1685 of the series. And we are currently recording Solomon and 666 in our series about Bible interpretation studies in connection with Revelation. This article is called Solomon and 666. Last time we discussed the coincidence of opposites. Why there cannot be either side if we do not allow the two sides of, I think the coin is maybe the best thought figure. The coin is having two sides, and Solomon had two sides as well. He was a helper of the Israeli state, built one of the greatest temples, but he built for himself, for his own pleasure, an even bigger palace, and made use of, as Kalle underlined here quickly, forced labor. So without being, yes, exactly, without being one, you can't be the other. It is the combination that makes for both sides. Heidegger describes one-sidedness as eerie or darkness. I think Tolkien, the author of the Ring series, The Adventures of Bilbo and his hobbits, mentioned Mordor as the one-sided evil nation, where things only had one expression or one understanding. What he's describing is a dictatorship. Although we are broadening the concept of dictatorship to be knowledge itself. This, I would say, also has connections to closing of the Western mind. We have deeply entered into the darkness. We have convinced ourselves that there is nothing to learn and that there is no morality in the world. Just follow the machine-like model and you become a machine. We took off at page 311. Let's see if I remember correctly. Just to begin 310, I think. Hope I'm correct there. Yes. This would be a continuation of 1682. And we're currently at page 310. And I apologize in advance for my coughing. I don't think it's going to be persistent, but It's a lot of things in the air now. I'm not allergic specifically to pollen, but there is a lot now. Even I, non-allergic, can feel that. We have in Sweden experienced heavy rains, and now we are seeing the fruits of that. I'll try to be closer to the microphone. Maybe change it. In a second, maybe. I see what the problem is. Okay. How is it sounding now? Is it fairly okay? Or? The same now? Better now? Okay, thank you. And do remind me of the camera, it's here now. That won't be forgotten. Be that as it may, while these traditions are intriguing and definitely paint Solomon in a more positive light. We do not deem them, especially the Solomon as exorcist tradition, definitive or sufficient to counter the negative portrayal found in the Book of Kings. Neither are these other traditions pertinent for the present discussion of Revelation 13:18 for several reasons. First, the date of the pseudo-epigraphic texts greatly complicates their consideration as likely antecedents or progenitors of the material in Revelation. So, for example, the zones of Solomon may well be 1st century BCE, but the Odes of Solomon are typically dated to the late 1st or to early 2nd century Common Era. With the Testament of Solomon dated sometime between the 1st and the 3rd centuries Common Era. Second, quite apart from the question of date, the very different content of these Solomonic texts indicates that they cannot be demonstrated to be more influential on the apocalypse at Revelation 13:18 than the material from Kings discussed above. The most pertinent material, perhaps, might be the traditions found in the Testament of Solomon. But there is no positive mention of Solomon as exorcist or otherwise in Revelation. Most telling of all on the matter of distinctive content is that none of these positive texts about Solomon mention 666. Third, it must be recalled that the kind of echoing or metaleptic activity posited here between Solomon and 666 in Revelation 13:18 generates or activates connections between the texts in question, but does not require one-to-one correspondence in every detail. And so forth. And finally, the relationship between 666 and Solomon need not and should not be construed as inflexible, let alone misunderstood as one complete identity or total identicalness, as G.K. Beale and Sean McDonough rightly note. John is exhorting the saints to spiritual and moral discernment, not intellectual ability to solve a complex math problem. Consequently, the proper spiritual application of the 666 to wicked rulers and comprising institutions, as well as to false teachers, will reveal to believers their seductive and imperfect nature. Insofar as 666 is not a mathematical problem to be solved, so also the connections between the beast and Solomon need not compute in every detail. Instead, there must be a proper spiritual application, which will recognize the points of connection and, where absent, the lack thereof. It is clear in any case from Kings that Solomon ends his career as a wicked ruler, in large measure because of the comprising institutions that he himself instated, which proved to be both seductive and deleterious. We concur, therefore, with Bede and MacDonagh when they write that an interpretive approach must be rejected, that attempts only at a literal calculation of the number 666 in an effort to identify only one historical individual. Of course, not all scholars would agree at this point, and so, not surprisingly, Beale and MacDonagh go on to qualify their judgment. Nevertheless, an individual could be the embodiment of evil at any particular period of history. And Christians would need spiritual wisdom to discern the danger that such a person posed. Five. Conclusion. Solomon in the echo chamber. The latter remark highlights the two-way nature of the text within the echo chamber of Scripture. By means of the number 666, Solomon's despotism is woven into the beast's overall depiction in Revelation. Even as the scale of the beast's evil reverberates backwards, to the Old Testament's presentation of Solomon, in order to cast that king's economic practices in an almost apocalyptic light. If that is, the reader has understanding, or to put it in the specific terms of Revelation 13:18. If the reader is wise, because this calls for wisdom. To be sure, the present study and the connections between 666 and Solomon, it has raised, do not resolve all of the questions that adhere and will continue to adhere to the mysterious number of the beast. As R.H. Charles said a century ago, even when every care is taken, there remains a hypothetical element in every solution that is offered. More recently, Ben Witherington has stated that the veiled nature of such geometric games allows John's text to have a certain multivalence. One may agree or disagree with Charles's and Witherington's specific conclusions about 666, which is Nero in both cases, and still acknowledge that every solution is hypothetical. Or perhaps better, that the mysterious number of 666 may well be multivalent in the end, if not also by design. If Irenaeus was unclear about 666 already in the 2nd century, the 21st century can be no more certain. We wish only to reintroduce Solomon. That iconic and yet heavily ironic king of Israel, into the mix of candidates for the job, or at least as one of the antecedents that layer the beast with allusion, image, and trace. It would seem that wisdom and discernment about Solomon indicates that he, too, has something to contribute to the mysterious number of Revelation 13:18. I will now go to some quotes with your permission. Now when I terminated the article, Solomon and 666. There is in page 310. Fourth line from the end. Or we can take the whole sentences, rather elongated, beginning with third after 666. Third, it must be recalled that the kind of echoing of metaleptic activity posited here between Solomon and 666 in Revelation 13:18 generates or activates connections between the text in question, but does not require one-to-one correspondence in every detail. And the fourth, I think, should be added. And so, fourth and finally, the relationship between 666 and Solomon need not and should not be construed as inflexible. Let alone be misunderstood as one complete identity or total identicalness. And I would say these are the moods one can fall into when approaching the castle. The first one being one-to-one correspondence, and the second is complete identity or total identicalness. It's a bit like the theorem of Gödel. These one-to-one correspondence and complete identity is what wrecks the understanding. It limits it. They are unlawful limitations for understanding, a sort of instigated handicaps on knowledge or darkening out of it. That understanding needs to follow some sort of a priori rules for understanding. One being the one-to-one correspondence and the other complete identity. Let me put that in anaphor. It's almost like something can only be knowledge if it follows these pre-made random rules for understanding or for being true. We know today that rules for truths is what, so to speak, take away truth. Something is true because it's true. Why not call it what it is? Not because it is following rules. I think this also has become more common in the pseudo-scientific era of today. You say something is true because you understood it as being true. And then you add something, a supplement, to make it so much weaker. Weakening the truth value, weakening the understanding. The authors of the book share away with it, go away from that path, which is sound. And I do like on the next page, after the quote, insofar as 666 is not a mathematical problem to be solved, so also the connections between the beast and Solomon need not to compute in every detail. If you got the text, that should be underlined and made into a wallpaper, a poster. It shouldn't be compute. Compute is, of course, connected to computer in these days. It wasn't, but it is today. These thinkers let ChatGPT compute what is the beast and what is good. With pre-arranged rules for truth. And once more is the entrance of the idea that we can sort of cripple our understanding and make truth out of that. No, we will hide it. And the evildoers will actually go free because of it. What do we need instead? Well, in the conclusion, there are quite a lot of recommendation from Mrs. Bodner and Strawn. Here at the end of the first small paragraph, I would just take the last part of the sentence. If the reader is wise, because this calls for wisdom. So, Sophia it's called in Greek. Wisdom is needed here, not the machine-like pre-made rules for whether something can be computed as being correct, original, or empirical investigations whether a text is truly from that year or made by that hand. No, wisdom is called for. Knowledge and wisdom. And I'd say the machine-like stands in stark contrast to wisdom. It makes us hiding the truth with a grid, if you like, as we discussed earlier, like the structuralist or the semiotics. In the second paragraph, we say just a hint, 6th line, I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th. More recently, Ben Witherington has stated that the very nature of such geometric games allows John's text to have certain multivalency. It can mean different things. And that's the purpose of the gematria, to introduce uncertainty, not the machine-like pre-arranged, on the verge of saying Kantian, after Immanuel Kant. Multivalency is Sophia understanding. Sophia doesn't have pre-arranged rules for what is wisdom, as they teach at horribly in modern educational system. These are the rules for thinking and understanding. Those are horrid oversimplifications, like the Yale style of literary criticism that uses Derrida and makes him into a machine-like deconstruction machine. I think someone even built a computer device that deconstructed. Now, Sophia is something much more, and only that can lead us to understanding. And as we read when we come into the end here, we wish only to reintroduce Solomon, that iconic yet heavily, and this is important, ironic king of Israel, into the mix of candidates for the job, or at least as one of the antecedents that layer the beast with allusion, image, and trace. And the very last sentence is very good. It shows exactly what it's called for. Instead of the machine-like one-to-one correspondence that hiding the truth, looking for the original and making cause and effect conclusion. This text was written then and it led to this, which led to that. The technological chain of reasoning. AITA, can also call it. It would seem, the authors end this article, that wisdom, Sophia, and discernment, Nous, about Solomon indicates that he too has something to contribute to the mysterious number of Revelation 13:18. That is the summary of the last part. Discussion here of Ali, you can come in. I have the camera so you're audible.
Yes, give me a minute. So let me see. So I agree completely that Sophia, wisdom is very important. And I would take it literally, in the sense that it's only the Sophia of the reader, or that Solomon himself could actually contribute, or rather, he was famous for one thing especially. What was he famous for? He was famous for his Sophia. So let's read from 1 Kings chapter 3. You see here, Solomon asked for wisdom. And here we said, at Gibeon the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, ask for whatever you want me to give you. Solomon said, you have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him, and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child, and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. Too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, since you ask for this and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have you asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment and administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there be. So he will be known for his wisdom, a wise and discerning heart, as we see the. So I think that we should even say that actually in the verse Revelation 13:18, two things that refer to Solomon. 666, the talents of that Solomon got, but also the very word Sophia, since he was famous for his wisdom. It was his characteristics of
Solomon.
Yes, of Solomon. So Solomon asked for wisdom. So you see it already in the main in the headline there in First Kings. So I even agree with the conclusion more than they do themselves that there is indeed a strong connection to Solomon, Sophia, and the number itself. And let's go to to remind ourselves of the reference in 6 in the Old Testament. Let me see, where did it disappear? No, it's actually I can read it from 1 Kings 10:14. Let me see first. In 1 Kings. So it's verse 14. So this is the no, what is this publicity? No, verse.
You should no. You should click the no.
Okay. So what should I do? Back to the main.
No, wait, don't click anything. Continue without supporting us. There's where you should click.
I should click here?
No. Down. Left,
okay, I go down.
Left color. In the same square, continue without supporting us. You click there. There. Yes.
Okay, thank you. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 66 talents. So we should now remember this is not coins with two sides, because the coins in our modern sense was not introduced before, I think, 5th or 6th century in Lydia with King Croesus. Anyhow, it's interesting that wealth, the bad things, is related to money, taxes. So taxes, there are both bad, just and unjust taxes. And we remember also what Christ said about wealth, that the root of evil is the love for money. And what he said, that give to the Caesar that belongs to Caesar.
Oh, yes.
So it's poignant, so to say, that taxes or money is the root of Solomon's problems. And let me so I think that the point about Sophia is more important than these two authors actually realize themselves. So one is the obvious reference to Sophia of Solomon, his wisdom. But the other point is that if you, let's say you are Christian and you believe in that Solomon represents the Antichrist, because he has also traits of Antichrist, that the beast or the future Antichrist will be known for his Sophia, like Solomon. And people will admire him as they did admire Solomon. So that is about prophetic applications, if somebody wants to take it. I think that it's important for church fathers that they read prophetic applications. So I think Solomon is more important than they realize themselves. So I think it's a great paper. I think that it was very inspiring. And then that the Sophia is actually multiple layers itself. Here. So for the readers, Sophia, generally speaking, is key to count out, but it's also reference to Sophia of Solomon, and for the future Antichrist. That is my interpretation.
I think it could also be a pertinent question to look into what is Sophia. I won't make it too long, this, but we are now making extensive research. It's not only Ian McGilchrist who looks into wisdom, as he often used the phrase, wisdom. And there is a really big difference. It's a chiasm between wisdom, that is understanding, knowing, knowledge, and this machine-like way of understanding. They couldn't be more different. They are not oppositions, they are something worse. Which is very important to understand. You can never get wisdom from reversing the machine-like model. as you can do with oppositions like good and evil, in some cases at least. So it's worse than evil. And the other thing is identity and correspondence. The idea of, for instance, having a test and you anonymize it, so you take away the person who's writing it. That is the machine model. It's a new tendency. It's constructed with the inspiration of course, things like classical physics and generalization and making everything the same. But it takes away almost all of wisdom. And to compare that to the East, which is sometimes brought in because they haven't been as lateralized exclusively to the left hemisphere or not as exposed to the classical model, it is still the person in who's writing, because we know two people can write exactly the same thing, letters, and it's completely different. Completely. It's the machine-like model that says it's the same, and that's the identity which destroys Sophie. Another important feature is that the handwriting is there, that the person really expresses him or herself. It is truly observer dependent in that way. You are there. There is no knowledge in general. It's not. I think this could be a sort of a picture or an image. Knowledge is not like pears on a tree, and you can just pick them, and they're just hanging there. As I had a friend I mentioned often, he was well educated, he was a doctor, and he thought, I will get more knowledge, I will learn the encyclopedia by heart. And I think everyone I've spoken to who are younger, they agree with that. And oh my God, then Sophia is far away. So I think that could be a hint of what Sophia is. But it's so interesting. We should definitely do maybe in the future at some time, maybe not in too long or distant future, specific conversation about Sophia and Nus. Well, thank you very much for this go through. Should we end there, Kalle, do you think?
Yes. Let's first end this video recording, and we will soon return to Book of Revelation, perhaps tomorrow.
I think we should end the recording first.
Yes.
Thank you for participating, Kalle Lundahl. Thank you for your excellent remarks and discussion. Thank you all for listening in and your patience. Have a very nice day, morning, afternoon. Bye bye for now.